Pleasant good night to all of Trinidad and Tobago, the Caribbean, and parts of the world where it is now nighttime. Today in Trinidad and Tobago, it was very, very hot and bright. But I hope tonight is just as bright and certainly not as hot. But as usual, you will receive a hot topic and a hot word from this channel, your favorite knowledge channel. And we want to thank all our supporters, new and old, and encourage those who have not yet subscribed to become part of the journey on this knowledge channel. And as usual, the structure of our presentation, we will start off with a motivational word. We will discuss the services that our company offers. We will also present the topic and then remind you of the services. So the word today, the motivational word today is man know thyself. This is a statement coming out of ancient Egypt, and it's a very powerful statement for every single human being to ponder deeply about. Because just as Marcus Garvey, the great Marcus, Caribbean and world leader Marcus Garvey, and the late great Malcolm X both alluded to, that a people without a history is a dead people, all right? And you could look at the analogy, if you uproot a plant and you rest it on the ground, that plant will soon die. So when we speak about man knowing thyself, it is very, very important that we establish a proper platform in terms of self-knowledge, because self-knowledge is certainly a key foundation for all knowledge, all right? And I implore you, I encourage you to examine this statement in all its different facets. Find the pertinent information as it applies to you, and give yourself that platform to be the best possible you. So the ancient Egyptians were visionary, and they were prophetic in terms of making such a statement, because it is an essential foundation for life and for achieving, I will say, greatness in life by knowing yourself. If you do not know yourself, achievement certainly will not reach its fullest potential. So I encourage you all, dig deep, look into yourself, look through others, and learn every day, because knowing yourself is not a 100-meter sprint. It's an ongoing journey that requires self-examination and reflection every moment of our existence. Sometimes we require others to help us too along that journey. So I encourage you to explore that statement and to make it work for you. Having presented the motivational word, we will now move into reminding you of the services that our organization offer. So we provide life coaching, and we live in a time where people are looking for ways and means to become better, and we certainly have the tools and the skills to help you grow and become the best possible you. So you can contact us in terms of arranging life coaching sessions. We also provide services in a range of areas in terms of workshops and one-on-one consultations, whether it be in the area of the role of psychology in business, emotional intelligence, psychology and you, conflict resolution, team building, communication skills, customer service, cooperative development, community development, leadership, public speaking. We are here for you. We are your brothers keepers, we are your partner, and we are willing to partner with you as we offer those services to help you navigate the trying times in which we live, and to give you that base to move forward in a positive way. So feel free and contact us at 1-868-778-5141, at 1-868-779-2544, or email us at leadershipwithadifference@gmail.com. We are committed to making that difference in your life. Call us, email us, and we'll be ready to serve you with efficiency, competence, and integrity. So we now move into today's presentation, which is the most important area of identity. So the last 2 weeks we focused on mental health. We're not focusing on it directly today, but it's an associated topic in terms of the psychological area. So when we talk about identity, it's a burning question. It's a question that has engaged professionals in the fields of sociology, psychology, mental health, and other areas for time immemorial. And given that ongoing journey to really identify what identity means, it just shows that it's not a 100-meter sprint, but a marathon and an ongoing journey in terms of really understanding who you are. Because identity is simply who you are, all right? In one of the theories in the field of psychology, the psychosocial theory, the fifth stage of that theory, according to Erikson, is the question of identity cohesion versus role confusion. So if you think of a developing child from infancy to adulthood, there are a number of things that could help that child, have a sense of identity. The parenting style of the parents, the encouragement and support, the consistent way in which the parents will have done things around the child. And that question of motivation and encouragement is so critical in terms of building confidence in that individual. And when that person has confidence in himself or herself based on their traditions, their customs, based on that sense of empowerment that has been placed in them, such a person will have a much better chance in terms of identifying who they are, right? So to avoid that role confusion that Erikson spoke about, we must set up clear, precise, supportive frameworks to give person an idea that there are pathways that can help them navigate the complexities of life. So we want to move to identity cohesion and do all in our power to avoid rule confusion. However, we need to really explore in a deep way what is identity, right? A human being is not just a flesh and blood entity. We have many sides. We speak in certain ways. We walk in certain ways. We based on our culture, we worship in particular ways. We prepare meals in certain ways. We dance in certain ways. So the question of identity must be looked at in many different aspects, because a human being might be identified, for example, as a teacher, but that said teacher could also be a hairdresser, a farmer, could also be a businessman or businesswoman. So we are not cast in stone in one domain, but we straddle many domains. For example, physical characteristics will be one domain of identity. People are known sometimes identified by their height, a short man, a tall woman, a robust man, a slender person, all right? People with broad noses, long noses, thick lips. All of these are physical characteristics that can help identify an individual or perhaps a group. We have mental characteristics in terms of our thinking style, our response to stress, our emotional profile, So when you look at thinking, we as individuals, and the individual is best placed to understand how he or she thinks. The question of metacognition, a big word simply meaning understanding your thinking processes, And if you could understand your thinking process, I think you're giving yourself a good chance in terms of trying to devise a method and approach to deal with situations with which you are confronted. Understanding how to analyze stuff, all right? Understanding your response in terms of when the pressure is on, do you buckle under the pressure or do you show resilience? That kind of understanding could help you improve, could help you strengthen yourself, could help you identify weak areas in terms of your mental approach to things, because most things in life would first of all, outside of the spiritual realm, the next layer certainly will be the mental side. In other words, anything you are about to do, there must be a mental picture, there must be a cognitive map. And that cognitive map might now be translated onto paper, and then you'll take it further forward in terms of trying to implement whatever plan. So we must be clear mentally in terms of how we conceptualize things, how we approach things, in terms of really understanding ourselves at the mental level. At the social level, we are unique human beings, we all relate in different ways. So understanding our relationship style is important. Also understanding the relationship style of others and how our style either matches or not match with another individual's style, and finding a way to make it work. Because we are social beings. Due to COVID-19, it has compromised in terms of physical interaction, though people still interact via the internet, social media, etc. But the question of being able to relate is very, 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 very critical in terms of success in life, because nothing at all can be achieved only at an individual level. So when we understand how we relate, actually we will be equipping ourselves or being put in a position where we can upgrade our social skills that will help us move through life in a smoother way and a more effective way. There are many persons who may not necessarily possess the world of talent, or they understand their talent in terms of being able to relate and understand people, and they use it to maximum effect and create pathways of success. So in terms of understanding our identity, understanding how we relate socially is a key cog in giving us that extra push forward. We also identify in terms of vocational pursuits. I start off by saying some people may be known as a teacher, other persons may be known as a pastor, a lawyer, a doctor, a housewife, a musician. So all of these are aspects by which people are identified. People identify in terms of their theology and their religious expression. Some people are Muslims, Hindus, Orishas, Anglicans, Catholics, Seventh-day Adventists. So people are identified in those areas too by religion. People are identified in terms of their thought processes. Some people are referred to as philosophers in terms of the messages and the beliefs that they communicate with the world, as I'm doing here. We are all philosophers in our own right, because philosophy is a set of beliefs. And because of my philosophy, I have utilized this YouTube channel to share those philosophies and principles that I believe in. All right. So the point I'm making about identity, it straddles physical, mental, social, emotional, vocational, religious. We can even think of identity in terms of an ethnic identity, right? A racial identity. And there's a lot of confusion between ethnicity and race, where, and in the social sciences we talk about race being a social construct. And it's a construct in that whoever was the designer of that, they categorize people by their physical characteristics mainly, and categorize them into racial groups. Whereas an ethnic group now would be a social grouping that shares common attributes, right? So for example, if I use the case of Nigeria, when people look at Nigerians in the main, there are many ethnic groups in Nigeria, and we will look at varying groups of people who all look the same, within the African community, all right? And you have ethnic groups within that racial group who share those common physical characteristics, such as the Igbo, the Yoruba, the Hausa, the Fulani, the Inchan, etc. So what are the things that distinguish them? Sometimes the manner in how they dress, facial markings, and a host of other attributes that are common to that group, where they identify as an ethnic group. So in the context of Trinidad and Tobago, sometimes the terms are used interchangeably, but from what I've said so far, they are not the same. And as we explore identity, we need to shed clarity on areas such as those, in terms of what is an ethnic identity, what is a racial identity, etc. So when we look at the work of Hicklin et al. 2008, in their book Perspectives in Caribbean Psychology, they made the point that the concept of identity has engaged the attention of the fields of sociology, psychology, and mental health for the longest while. Because when we think of the Caribbean context in terms of identity, as they rightly pointed out, we think about personality, gender, social role. Can we say that there is a Caribbean personality? Certainly we can say yes, and it's a question that can be explored and debated. For example, if we look at the area of cricket, the way a West Indian batsman will approach his batting versus a cricketer from England or Pakistan, we can see differences in style. Most English batsmen, didn't have that, sense of flamboyance and style as Sir Isaac Vivian Richards, Brian Charles Lara. Those guys had a identity that was unique, was Caribbean, and was one that certainly was distinguishable from any other type of batting style from any other part of the world. So that is just one example in terms of a Caribbean personality or a Caribbean identity showing itself by that example that I just gave there. All right. So it's a question that has a deep significance for Caribbean people. If we think of the African community, that question of identity even goes deeper, in the context of things like, self-image, things like skin color, it's a question of race, religion, and education. Because when we think of identity, and we go back, if I just reference something I mentioned last week, when we think of the transatlantic slave trade and the slave process and what took place, we recognize that, a lot of the traditions of our ancestors had to be done in secret or were totally disbanded. So according again, citing Hicklin et al. 2008, the Afrocentric worldview in terms of the African identity was dismantled by that whole trauma of slavery. And as a result of the dismantling of that identity, we had what we call the imperialists, according to Hicklin et al. 2008, the imperialist indoctrination of values, of education, of community. In other words, the African man and woman was moved away from their state of naturalness and indoctrinated into imperialist Eurocentric worldviews that certainly helped to, if not totally destroy, but severely, damage their identity. And all of the fall off from that still persists today. So another great psychologist, Dr. Naim Akbar, from the United States of America because of the role of what Hitler et al. Spoke about as being diseducation and miseducation in totally rearranging a group's way of living and seeing themselves. It created what we call dichotomies. And you know, when we have a dichotomy, we have things that are sharply opposed to each other, straddling each other. So, in terms of the Afrocentric worldview versus the imperialist and Eurocentric worldviews that were imposed on them, it created a crisis of identity. So some of the dichotomies are, for example, so to cite Hitler et al. Again, 2008, they spoke about the individual versus the collective. In traditional African societies, Asian societies, etc., collectivism, where the approach to things was based on the power of community. I remember examining some literature where they were discussing the success of Chinese students in science and mathematics. And they said one of the main drivers behind that was the level of support provided by family and community that contributed to their success. It wasn't anything out of the ordinary that no other group possesses, but that sense of support. When we think of traditional African societies, and to cite the late great Steve Biko, freedom fighter from South Africa, who sadly died while in prison under apartheid, he said that, you know, the African view of the world is in pursuit of the greater good. So we're talking about a collectivist view, where because of imperialist indoctrination and Eurocentric values, you have an emphasis on what the individual can achieve, individual effort. So a lot of our people who have been moved away from that collective premise are now struggling and struggling with individuality versus collectivism. Hence the reason I guess there is so much probably selfish attitudes that persist and that struggle, right, in terms of understanding that there is a role. So if you are educated, quote unquote, you are expected not to be a servant of yourself, but a servant of community. So the more we can shift back to that collectivist point of view, it will be better for us in terms of navigating a lot of the challenges we have had to experience in life, and more so now with the COVID-19 reality. Another dichotomy is the question of competition versus cooperation. You know, so a modern view to leadership is about working in teams, and that working in teams is a traditional African Asian way of doing things. You know, when we think of the African concept of socionomics, and Richard Barton in that book Socionomics, you know, spoke about it, where any issue, problem, economic or social, the community pool their resources to address those problems. So, you know, the answers to many of our problems have been well established centuries ago, and it's up to us to realize that competition, probably in sport, has some value, and even in that, even in the question of sport, cooperation is so important. So it's better we drift along the pathway of cooperation and lessen the competition, because let us compete with ourselves instead in being better individuals, but cooperate across the board in terms of ensuring maximum output for our individual efforts if we cooperate, and for the benefit of one and all. So those dichotomies that I have highlighted are just some examples of that struggle because of that reorientation of identity and self that many persons in the world struggle with, particularly African people across the globe, as a result of that systematic shift and dismantling from their sense of naturalness. So identity is a discussion that through this presentation, is just the first presentation on this topic, but it's a topic that we need to continue exploring in terms of really understanding who we are. Because if we do not understand who we are, to move forward in life will be a great, great, great struggle. And the role of education in creating a sense of identity is very, very, very critical, right? When people are trained into their traditions and their achievements, their customs, the way things were done, it gives you a very, very good starting point. When you know that, you came from a civilization, again representing the African community, that was a civilization or civilizations of greatness and not pauperization as promoted so widely, it gives you a different view of yourself, because the question of identity is also connected with self-esteem. How do you view yourself? And how people view themselves, sometimes it manifests, particularly when it's a question of low self-esteem and doubt in a weak image to the world. So our self-presentation, to present yourself with, as a person of force, as the late great Frederick Douglass said, a man lacking force is lacking the essential ingredient of human dignity. So to have that force, you must have a sense of who you are. You must have an appreciation of tradition, of culture, of customs, and that will give you that base to build up all of the other areas to make you a whole person. When we think of the ancient Egyptians again, their whole concept of becoming educated was one where you had to have knowledge in divinity, you had to have knowledge in the social sciences, you had to have knowledge in the natural sciences, you had to have knowledge in civics, in sport. So their view was a holistic view, because as I started off saying, your identity is multifaceted, right? But there must be a base. Having established the base, we need to develop it in as broad a way as possible to give us that capacity to navigate this life that we are contending with. So as usual, I know this message has resonated with you. I thank you for tuning in. I thank you for listening to the word. And I remind you, we need to continue our examination of who we are to give ourselves the best possible chance of success in life. So once again, subscribe to the channel once the message reaches you. Like the video, share the video, comment on the video, and tune in every week. Next week, again, we will continue another aspect of discussing this question of identity. I look forward to you inviting your friends, your relatives, and one and all to subscribe to this channel. Make it the channel that it is destined to be, and your support is an essential ingredient for that to happen. So again, reminding you of the services that we offer. We offer life skill training, we offer life coaching sessions, a range of workshops in leadership, communication skills, customer service, team building, psychology, sociology, etc. All you have to do is call and make an appointment by calling 1-868-778-5141, 1-868-779-2544, or email us at leadershipwithadifference@gmail.com. So thank you for listening, and stay tuned for the next presentation.